engineering. So there was some cross-fertilization. So that was a very valuable experience. And so they were very popular conferences. But then in October 2014, actually, we sort of recognized that HCA was undergoing some funding problems. Nothing new there. Their budgets were being cut. Again, nothing new there. And actually, one of the things they decided to do was actually to pause or stop the HE STEM conference. And actually, that was a bit disappointment. And our colleagues at Open University, Nick Braithwaite and Clem Herman, who were the eSTEM co-directors, soon to be taken over by Dawn. And they actually emailed a number of people that had gone to those conferences saying, actually, that's such valuable. Why don't we try and carry that on and organize it ourselves? This was the time before Teams, and actually organizing meetings with lots of people from different institutions in the days of Skype was a bit more challenging. And I do want to recognize the contribution that Diane Ford made at that time in sort of, corralling us and organizing us when the technology wasn't so easy at that time. So quite soon we had those online meetings, and Leicester were bold enough to volunteer to host the first conference. And I'm going to hand over to Sarah.
Thank you, Neil. So early on, I think we all reached a consensus about the principles of how we're going to conduct this STEM conference. And I think one of the advantages that it gave us was that as an independent organisation, we were able to set the registration fees essentially at a cost basis. And I'd like to actually thank all the institutions that hosted, because I think every institution that's hosted the conference has provided rooms free of charge, which has really helped. And so I think that was really key to us, is to make the conference as accessible as possible through those low registration fees. And that kind of, I suppose, that emphasis on inclusivity came through really in wanting to be inclusive, particularly for those people who are in their early stage of their sophomore career, whether they were starting out in their academic career or perhaps transitioned to a teaching contract, was making sure that we set that tone with that inclusive and supportive environment. Now, initially, we started off mirroring what had happened with the Advanced HE STEM conference and having discipline-specific strands, and we'll pick up what happened to that a little bit later on. But I think another key element of this was really fostering collaboration around scholarship so that we could increase our impact. So thinking about actually how we could have a more powerful narrative if we join people who are working on similar things up together to work on those. And then we decided early on that we would rotate the venue, and that really has broadened our reach. So if we look at the differences between the number of people who attended the first meeting and the number of people, the number of as contributing institutions, then we've really managed to broaden our reach through having a little, I suppose, excursion around the United Kingdom. And then I think the other principle that was really important at the start was the ability, I suppose, to have something in perpetuity beyond the conference, that opportunity to publish. And so right from the start, we've had a collaboration with New Directions in the Teaching of Natural Sciences, which is the Society for Natural Sciences publication. And I'll talk more about that right at the very end of the conference. So our first Horizons in STEM 10 years ago was truly a leap into the unknown. And I think these were things that were really on the mind of the organising committee when we embarked on this venture. And it was really actually for a completely unknown conference, would we have anyone that submitted or attended? And based on that, actually, with an unknown number of submissions, how on earth are we going to structure the programme? And I think other things, you can see the other things that are going on in our minds about, would we be able to attract someone to a conference that no one had ever heard of before to give a plenary talk? And of course, actually, Advanced HE, wonderful organisation, but have a huge amount of resource behind them. So certainly something that was on my mind was whether we'd be able to offer something that people perceived as a quality experience, based on the fact that this whole conference was being run by volunteers and still is. And I just wanted to pay credit to talk to her a little bit about visionaries before, but this is Professor Annette Cashmore, and she was really, I suppose, the fearless visionary who took on the mantle and decided to host that first conference at the University of Leicester. Now, very sadly, Annette actually passed away completely unexpectedly 6 weeks before the conference. And that really could have been a bit of a game over moment. But I think the National Organising Committee were really clear that we wanted to carry on. Annette and her husband had been instrumental in organising the conference up until that point. So I stepped up as a member of the local organising committee and had some very big shoes to fill. But I think at that point, that sense of collaboration really came through, because the National Organising Committee were absolutely brilliant in supporting me in delivering the first conference, and it happened. So here we are. I've actually managed to find a screenshot of the very first programme. It had a 2-day event, so very similar to what we see now there at the University of Leicester. We actually had a significant number of contributions, so much so that we were able to have 4 strands. We actually had 64 presentations, so not dissimilar to the number that we see now. And we attracted over 100 delegates. And I think this tweet, it's a bit old school now, but it was a tweet then, really sums up that first conference. It was a wonderful, really, I think, inspiring event. And you can just hear, I think, which really defines the ethos in which we've moved forward, which is this business that I think of, learning from each other and what we can achieve, by thinking across the disciplines rather than working in discipline silos. So I'll hand over to Cristina, who's going to pick up the story.
So I'm picking up the story at conference number 5. So in the interim, we've done the excursions around the country. We've been up to Scotland. We've been to Hull. Neil Gordon hosted the conference at Hull. He can't make it now. And we've also went to Kingston. Neil here is from Kingston. Conference number 5, University of Nottingham. Everything looks quite straightforward. We've got the date. There's a picture of our Portland, of our Trent building. The venues were booked. We booked the dinner. We had the menus organised. We'd opened the call for abstracts. We'd almost closed the call for abstracts. You can tell that I'm sort of leading up to something here. In preparing for this, I looked back over the correspondence. We actually extended the call for abstracts because there was industrial action. So taking you back to the spring of 2020, beginning of March, UCU strikes. So we were very sort of preoccupied with that. And then suddenly, wrong way. We all remember March, this incredibly unexpected event. We suddenly found ourselves at home, lockdown, the pandemic. We didn't really know what to make of it. We kept in touch with the community. We were sort of saying, yes, we're going ahead. We think we're going ahead. We don't quite know. We didn't make a decision actually until May about what to do. I don't actually recall particularly that. I guess there was so much going on. I don't really recall why we waited, but we did. And then we got to May and decided we had to do something. And I think we knew that we were either going to cancel it or to move online. So we decided to go online. And I'm pleased to kind of report that it rather remarkably went quite well. I think we had really about 6 or 7 weeks to get online. We used Teams, and I have to pick up the theme from the previous speakers. We couldn't have done it at Nottingham without the organising committee. So the Open University had run their conference, their normally face-to-face conference in April. They'd run it on Teams. We were using Teams at the University of Nottingham for our teaching. There were lots of conversations between the local Nottingham committee and colleagues at the Open University. We kind of pulled it together. Other colleagues were really helpful in terms of just getting the communications out. We had to say to those people who had got accepted presentations, hang on, we're going to do this differently. We're going to do it online. It's no longer 2 days. It's going to be 2 half days. It's going to be one afternoon. It's going to be followed by the following morning. Actually, we think that 20 minutes is perhaps a bit too long. Do you remember we actually shortened the presentations because we didn't really understand what cognitive load in an online synchronous setting meant. So we had to make some changes, but we managed. And I must also say that the local committee, very digitally savvy, were really, really helpful. So just a few screenshots, you can see that's the Teams interface. We used the channels for the different sessions. That was our main room where we had the plenaries. We had a good attendance, 176. This was completely online. We also had, you probably can't see it, a help desk channel, and that was well used. So we managed to sort of pull it together, but there were a lot of queries, and we just managed to pull it together, I think is what I would say. Okay, so then just to talk you through the more recent conferences. So we then moved to the OU 2021, that was online. And then UCL, Swansea, Bristol, and now we're here in Birmingham. The thing that's interesting is a change that's happened is that all of those, except for Nottingham and the OU that were online, all of the subsequent committees, all the subsequent conferences have been hybrid. And that's been at the decision of the local organising committee. So that's a shift. And this conference is hybrid as well. So then just to talk a little bit very quickly about the development of some of our principles. Started off, Sarah explained the starting position. This is kind of just where we've moved to. We now have a slight change to the plenary to how we originally conceived it. We have somebody who's well established, fairly senior, who will give a plenary. We invite somebody who's much more early career to give a plenary. We've moved from a focus which we originally had of asking for subject-specific content. We've moved away from that. We've learned that actually we have more in common than our disciplines separate us, if you know what I mean. So we've moved away from that to pedagogic themes. And part of that also was to bring us together. We didn't really want us siloed into disciplines. We have become a bit more selective in our approach because the conference has grown. So actually, you know, in accommodating more submissions, there was something else that happened, which is that we wanted to have less strands. We wanted actually to not have lots and lots of presentations where you only had 10 people in the room or you only had 50 people in the room. So we have quite deliberately gone for a slightly more selective approach, and we've taken the parallel strands down from 4 to 3. We also wanted to increase reach and impact for the people who were presenting. So that was also a kind of theme underneath that. Allied to that, we've created more prominence for the poster session. So we've got the presentations, but we've got more opportunities with the posters. So we're hoping that we're still managing to be really inclusive and really welcoming and to support a wide variety of colleagues applying to present. And we've had to keep the pedagogic themes in line with the changes to our pedagogy. And I'm not going to dwell on what those are, but I think we kind of know what those are. I'm going to stop there and hand over to Diane.
Thanks, Christina. Okay, so has it been successful these last 10 years in running this conference at all these different venues and in all these different ways? I would think incredibly in the fact that you're all here today and we're carrying on after 10 years, something that was dreamed up via an email from the Open University to colleagues at other institutions is really a testament to how successful this conference has been. It's a bit meta, isn't it, starting a conference by talking about the conference, but bear with us. So as a platform for reach and impact, it really has made a lot of difference to lots of people who've been delegates over the years. It's an opportunity to show the effectiveness of SoTL, of scholarship of teaching and learning, and to promote that work and the importance of that work. It's raised the profile of SoTL within the participating institutions and within individuals. It's certainly an opportunity for external networking. In the years that I've been coming to this conference, I have met so many colleagues who I didn't know existed, who had were interested in working on compatible things, and that's led to collaborations and all sorts of useful cooperation between institutions. And the evidence for this is that 70 separate higher education institutions have been involved over the years. That's an enormous number of universities represented. For the people who attend, what has been the impact on them? Well, when we were introduced, let's blow our own trumpets a bit. You may have noticed that we all had professor in front of our title, and I speak for us all. We've all got there through the scholarship of teaching and learning. So it has been immensely useful to have had those 10 years of collaborations and networking and helping and supporting SoTL through other institutions to enable us to be successful in our academic careers. I mentioned that the collaborations have been fostered, that career progression and recognition as people who are especially teaching only academics institutions. This is a really vital way in which you can build your case for promotion, and you can enhance the teaching and learning of STEM subjects in your institution and more widely. We also have several national teaching fellows amongst our group here, so there's another sign of the amazing work that they've done through the Horizons network. So what sort of current challenges are we talking about? What are the challenges for SoTL at the moment, and people who practice SoTL and those teaching only or teaching intensive academics that carry out this work? Well, we're all under pressure. We're all under pressure for our institutions for financial reasons at the moment. There's a constant drive to recruit and retain more students. It's the focus of all our institutions at the moment. That means increasing work for us. Headcount in staff is going down while those numbers are going up. That means less time for SoTL, less funding for SoTL, less opportunity for people to get involved in scholarship and also to get involved outside their own institution in scholarship. And of course, the one that's hanging over lots of us in STEM, the closure of expensive or low recruiting subjects. And this is a great concern for all of us. But why is scholarship of teaching and learning so important against that backdrop of all those challenges that the sector is facing? Well, we've got more problems or opportunities, depends on which way you want to look at it, than we have ever had. We've got to think more carefully about how we blend our student experience in terms of digital and face-to-face. We've got an enormous EDI mountain to climb to make sure that students have equitable outcomes. Enormous amount of work is going on there, but not as much as should be doing under the financial constraints. We have a neurodiversity and mental health crisis amongst many of our students. The AI issue, I didn't put that at the top. I might have put it at the top under normal circumstances, but every conference I've been to in the last 2 years has put AI at the top. So I thought I'd put it a little bit lower down. Engaging our students, not just getting them into the same room with us, but engaging them digitally and online as well. And of course, resource constraints. Once again, for expensive subjects, our subjects are costly to teach, and therefore the powers that be are always looking for ways that those costs can come down, and that restricts our pedagogy and can lead to an impoverished experience for our students. Okay, so I'm going to hand back over to Leah.
Okay, so now we're going to have a bit of interaction, because actually one thing we want to finish about is thinking how we can develop the reach of Horizons community. And one thing we have done already is set up the Horizons STEM Higher Education Network, and we've already run a few online workshops, webinars during the year. So if you haven't signed up to that, have a look at that, and we encourage you to sign up via the JISC email. What I'm going to move on to is, in terms of that network, which is, sort of remote and you can sign up, what we're interested in is what activities would benefit you as a community. What sort of workshops or online seminars would you find useful for us to put on? So if you scan that QR code, hopefully your Mentimeters will work on. And if mine. Yeah. So some of the workshops we've already run are a sort of introduction to doing pedagogic research and some of the issues about ethics, but maybe there's some other things that people can think of, or how we might carry on that work.
cloud, yeah, the cloud is the recommended Wi-Fi. If you're in the room online, use your own Wi-Fi. Yeah, so if you can join the cloud, it should just ask you to connect as a guest of the university. Good question. Thank you, whoever recommended the cloud.
Is that your room?
It does work, but we think this room is not conducive to it. So, yeah. Not yet. Let me refresh that. Oh yeah.
Okay, well, that's very pleasing because actually one thing I haven't mentioned, Rebecca Barnes and I are sort of setting up some mentorship schemes. So we've sent out some expressions of interest via the network. So if you are interested in mentorship, either being a mentee or a mentor, or another possibility is just being part of a peer support network, we'll try and get that out again via email because we hope to carry on that next year. I think if we go to the top, there was something about something I want to think about is coming to my mind, and somebody mentioned up there is in terms of sort of funding or prizes. I'm mindful of the work our long-term supporters Learning Science have done in terms of their technology enhanced learning sort of prizes, and actually that gives recognition to people. And so I think there may be some space for us to think about doing things in that space. And then I think the other one is actually publishing or doing SoTL pedagogy research. So I think that's something we can think of. There's two things actually, process about how to carry out research, and we've started that work, but also I think sometimes the impact of that could be enhanced by collaboration. So I think somebody mentioned there about actually if you've got some research ideas, share those research ideas, a joint project. And I think there's a talk later on today that I know Sarah's involved in terms of I think it's evaluating portfolios, but I noticed there that's contributions for 4 or 5 institutions that have been represented by Horizons. I'm sure that piece of work, when they write it all up, will actually show greater impact because it's research from a number of different types of institutions. Okay, so move on to the next Mentimeter. So the next thing we want to ask you about is actually about the actual conference, and we've seen some of the challenges there, and also where we've moved in terms of we've moved from face to face, we've been fully online, and more recently we've been hybrid. But we are aware in terms of the current funding crisis, for a lot of people it's more difficult to get funding to attend. And so some ideas of actually how the conference might develop. Maybe there's some other changes to the conference that you might be able to suggest. Yeah.
Does it go backwards?
Go to the Mentimeter screen.
Very good.
To the Mentimeter screen.
Oh.
In the Menti presentation.
I've never used Mentimeter.
Does that work?
This is just view only. Are you logged in?
No.
On your phone, because you set it up.
Sorry? I have to log in.
Have you gone into Menti on your phone?
In the meantime, we can just be thinking about changes we want to make. Yeah, plan
You
your own.
logged in as you. No, it won't let you. You're in as a participant. You need to log in as a
I'll just take 7 minutes for me.
in.
You need to move for the first slide. Yeah.
Has anybody got any ideas? Do you want to? Anybody put the hand up? Let's do it the old-fashioned way. And yeah, at the back. Yeah, he's just. Sorry, I can't hear you. Thank you. You go back to the screen. Go back to the presentation. Getting a tip from the audience. Go forward in the
So do
presentation.
you want to?
Don't worry.
Try that one. If you log in again via that QR code, come out of the original one, log in again. Through that QR code, you should get to the second question. You've all gone quiet, so that suggests you've managed it. Or you've given up, one or the other. Has anybody got any suggestions? Oh, all right, okay.
Hooray.
Go on then. Shout out old school. Anyone got any suggestions about how we can help improve accessibility and impact? Is there anybody who struggled to get here this year, for example? Kath? Speaks a Brummie there, yeah. Yeah, it was a challenging start. You can't see everything. Yeah. Good idea. Alternatively, or in addition, perhaps we could use the network events to repeat some of the most popular talks, that especially the ones that get upvoted in the competition. Yeah, good plan. I think this gentleman at the back, white shirt.
Or 50 students or even a student certain for us. That also give us a different angle that will be that's a different angle for me. Yes. We do have students presenting. Sorry, we have had students presenting. I think we got some students presenting this time, and we more not waive, but massively reduce the registration costs for students presenting. So I think that does give a good perspective. I take a point about technicians. That would be, I think we have had something in the past, but not a lot. So I think actually, that's part of an important community for STEM. So that'd be a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Really good idea. Thank you. We didn't. Yeah. Last question, no, last point, I should say, over here. Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, I think our time's up, so thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just want to say a personal thank you as well. I was presenting at that online conference at Nottingham. It's the first time I've done a pedagogical conference, and I was so nervous. And you were just so welcoming, and you've been so welcoming all the way through. I've only been part of the national committee for 2 years. It resulted in having a few drinks at Swansea dinner, sitting next to Diane, and here I am 2 years later. So it is such a supportive community, and someone who's got very little confidence. It's really helped me get network confidence and evidence in my applications for promotions. So thank you very much. Right, we're going to move now. We've got a 10-minute break while we move around. We're going back to for the other 2 streams, or you can stay here if you want to continue in this room. The other 2 rooms are cooler.